This is the Elegoo Neptune 4 Max, and it is such a big printer. It is really hard to show you how big this printer is, but I'm going to try. No, that's not good. Almost. Okay, that's how big this is. Okay, let's go back upstairs where it's quieter. I'm going to talk a little bit in my studio about the Neptune 4 Max. I'm going to give you my initial impressions and tell you why I'm not ready yet to give it a full review. We'll go over some pros, some cons, and some thoughts I have about how to get the best out of this printer. So let's head up to the studio and give that a try. The Neptune 4 Max is my third Neptune printer, and they're all durable workhorses that require very little tinkering to get great prints. Now, full disclosure, Elegoo sent me the Neptune 4 Max for my review, but they don't get to know anything about the review that I'm doing. They don't tell me what to say, and they've specifically always asked me for my feedback on their products. The Neptune 4 is one of the very first series of printers from the major manufacturers to come with Klipper pre-installed. Klipper is the firmware. You can think of it sort of like the operating system for your printer. Klipper is a lot more powerful than previous generations of printer firmware, and it can get you the most performance out of your printer, but it requires a more powerful processor to run. The cost of the processor is one of the reasons that companies have been really slow to upgrade their printers to Klipper, but with the renewed competition in the industry, these faster printers are finally coming to market. The main model, the Neptune 4, is about $250, and the new Neptune 4 Max comes in at $478, which is a crazy good deal for a printer this big and this fast. As you can see, the Neptune 4 Max is big. I mean, really big. The print area is 420 by 420 and 480 millimeters tall. That's nearly 17 inches on the X and Y and 19 inches at the Z axis. I honestly can't even think of what to print that would take up the whole print volume. The nice thing is that I can print a whole cosplay helmet in one piece, and I can print something like this blaster in multiple pieces on one plate, or I can even just stick it on the plate while I'm doing the helmet and still have plenty of room. In fact, I've been using my Neptune 4 Max instead of my Neptune 4 because it works as well as the Neptune 4. So if you buy a Neptune 4 Max, you don't also need to get a smaller printer for smaller jobs. One of my favorite uses of the Max is for a print that on a typical 3D printer would need to be adjusted in some weird way just to fit on the bed. You know, the prints with awful supports everywhere because the print has to be turned like it was in Tetris? With the Neptune 4 Max, that's not a thing. Typical size pieces for the Max can be printed at any orientation that you want, even straight up. Do you like 3D printing and also like wearing clothing? If so, check out this great Dave Tries This shirt. Check out the link below. Building the printer took me about half an hour to 45 minutes. If I had someone else to help me give me a hand, hold the gantry, and hold the print head in the right places while I was attaching the screws, it would have gone faster than that. I think we need a bigger table. It's no more complex of a procedure than it is to set up a smaller one. It's just a little bit more awkward. There's one very important thing to do when you're setting up your Neptune 4 Max, and that isn't in the manual and isn't necessary on their smaller printer. There are several plastic spacers between the print bed and the machine, and these have to be removed. I didn't know that the machine had them, and the first few times I tried to home the printer, it made an awful noise, like a small machine gun. I tried to figure out why it was making the noise by moving the X and the Y axis, and all of a sudden one of these spacers fell out. Let's talk about speed and accuracy. Just like the Neptune 3 Pro and the Neptune 4 that I've used, this printer seems bulletproof. I've done about 30 prints so far, and almost everything has come out great. I've only seen two kinds of defects so far. The first one came from stringiness from working with wet filament. So here's one of the first plates that I did. The humidity in my room was like 57, 58%, and I was using some filament that I hadn't dried out beforehand, and that's what caused all the stringiness. This is a smaller print, but I switched to a filament that I had already dried out, and this is just a scaled down version of that, and there is no stringing whatsoever. One other thing that I've seen so far comes down to the slicer. But you can see here that these layers are not really adhesed very well. Now, some of this, again, is the filament, some of this is the slicing. And the problem with the slicing right now is that the only thing that really officially supports the slicing is Elegoo's own version of Cura, which is a very old version of the software and doesn't do a lot of things that the newer Cura does. However, Elegoo sent me the basic profiles for Prusa for the Neptune 4 series, and you can find my link to the video that has this up here, and I'll link to those files down below. And with that profile, you can use Prusa. However, it's not exactly dialed in. If you look at the settings inside Elegoo's Cura, you'll see that some of them are very different from the settings in Prusa. That means that the support for printers in Prusa is there, but it also means that you're not getting the full support for all the quality that this printer can produce. But again, even this print that just used the basic Prusa settings came out really good. There are definitely some things that I'd like to see improved with final versions of the profile, so I'm really looking forward to new versions of the profile. All the Neptune 4 printers are essentially the same print head and print settings, so all you really have to do in Prusa is go in and tell Prusa to use a bigger bed size. You just put in the dimensions of the bed for the Neptune 4 Max and you're good to go. So my son for Halloween is going to be a Remnant Scout Trooper, and I've been printing pieces for that. On the Neptune 4 Max, this print took just a little bit over 6 hours, and slicing the same file for the Neptune 3 Max resulted in an estimated time of 21 hours and 6 minutes. For people 3D printing for a living, having a speed boost of 3 to 4 times over the Neptune 3 Max can pay for itself in just a few jobs. The Neptune 4 Max and its siblings also have automatic bed leveling. Simply start the automatic leveling process, and the probe measures the whole surface to create a calibration for the machine. I barely touched the leveling knobs to adjust them. It was so dialed in out of the box. The back left corner was a little low, the front right corner was a little high. I just gave them a little turn in each direction, and I got automatic leveling with almost no need to adjust anything. You could conceivably run this printer without knowing anything at all about using leveling knobs to make adjustments. The Neptune 4 Max also has a built-in Ethernet port, and Klipper has its own built-in print server, which means you can still bring files to print via SneakerNet, but if you want to use Klipper wirelessly or on a LAN, it's really easy to do, and then you can upload the files and monitor the prints right in your web browser. I bought a very cheap Ethernet to Wi-Fi adapter on Amazon to be able to get it connected in a room with no Ethernet. There's a link in the description. It took me a minute or two to set it up, and then I could just wirelessly print from anywhere in the house. Make sure if you get one of these, you find something that is a wireless to Ethernet adapter and not a Wi-Fi repeater. They perform different functions. To go to the print server on your web browser, you just go into the printer, you find its IP address on the Advanced tab, and then you just enter that address in your browser. You can then upload files from there, start and stop your prints, calibrate the printer, and a lot more. I'll be doing a full review of the Neptune 4 Max after those profiles come out. Right now, it's not really fair to judge the printer based on the preliminary support that it has. But that brings up an interesting point, which is, do you want to buy a printer right now when you can't use your software of choice in order to slice it? If you don't need a printer of this size right now, it's probably good to wait until those profile versions have come out for the slicers, because then you can use whatever slicer you want to use. However, if you need to print something as large as the Plus or the Max can handle, I would still recommend going out to get them right now, because there is limited support, but even with that limited support, the prints are looking really good. And the reason I'm pretty confident in that is because I've put probably 20 kilograms of filament through the Neptune 4. I haven't had any real problems with it as of yet, so I'm really convinced that the Neptune 4 Max, which is based on the regular Neptune 4, is going to work well because that printer works so well. One thing that you can help me with in the comments below is tell me what I should print. I can't even really think of something that could really maximize the full size of this build plate. I'm doing cosplay pieces, but I haven't done anything that's super tall or super wide, and I really can't think of what I should print. So if there's something that you think I should print, especially if you have a link to an STL file, please put that in the comment. And the things that I do print, I'll post on Shorts, and so you can see how they look. If you want to see my full review when that is out, you can subscribe here or below in order to see that. And if you'd like to see my reviews of other 3D printers, you can do that here. And as always, for Dave Tries This, I'm David Schloss. Thank you so much for giving this a try.